Well, the original, I've heard this story that for WrestleMania 9, the pretty much every original planned match for that card had to be changed. And some of those matches were Hogan versus Giant Gonzalez, Undertaker versus Yokozuna, Macho Man versus Ultimate Warrior, and Bret Hart versus Scott Steiner.
Absolutely none of those. The only thing with the Scott Steiner thing is when we wanted to bring the Steiners in, Pat Patterson and I originally wanted to bring Scott in alone as a single, have Scott win the Royal Rumble and have the match that night for Scott to become the champion. Vince was like, yeah, that's never going to happen. He didn't want a newcomer and someone that he felt that the audience didn't know to come in and do something like that. Yokozuna was somebody that had just started, and the thing about Yoko was every time that Yoko would take his robe off in every arena, there would be just an audible ooh reaction from the crowd. So we thought, well, Yoko, who the hell's going to get him over the top rope in the Battle Royal at Royal Rumble? That made sense for him to win it. I had pushed heavily for the Royal Rumble to have consequences, a la the winner gets something at WrestleMania. So the idea at that time was, the only thing that changed is we got closer to it was when we got the encore for the pay-per-view, which meant that you have the pay-per-view on Sunday and then we replayed it for a week after that and we're able to plug it. Normally you had two shots. You had the live opportunity to see the pay-per-view, and then you could see it on a replay that night, but you couldn't see it after that. So when we did that, the idea of Hogan, what if, this unadvertised, this craziness happened? And that was why, a lot of the reason why we did it. And also Hogan wanted to have the belt when he went overseas, but that's a whole nother story, what took place there. So that was always the plan. The plan was always for Bret and Yoko and for Yoko to win the championship, to be this unbeatable monster. And we got there in the summer, but not exactly the way that we wanted to. And originally, we wanted Hogan in a single match. Beefcake was somebody that Hogan really wanted. They felt that Beefcake, it was time for him to come back. Had to protect his face, and Hogan felt that it would be a better match if it was a tag team match, and wanted to work with DiBiase and IRS because he trusted them. So those matches were, once we got into it, those were in stone. And the Undertaker Giant Gonzalez match, he's never let me forget that. Undertaker hasn't. But we worked to that one too. So yeah, boy, I think something happens between here and over there with some of the rumor and innuendo. I've never even heard these.
Oh, I heard also there was plans for Marty Jannetty versus Shawn Michaels and a Mr. Perfect versus Ric Flair match.
There were.
Oh,
there were, but yeah, there were. That part actually we did have but the idea was Rick gave his notice. And we got the Mr. Perfect and Ric Flair match right there, live the day that Vince granted him his notice.
See, the thing, you'll never really know what it's like to be a true wrestling geek, Mark, because you actually worked in the business. So for a nerd like this to get any sort of insider info, it's like just hooking into my veins,
No, it's all good. And it was, but some of that is Marty Jannetty and Shawn. That was something that we did want to do, and it was short-lived due to Marty having some challenges and different demons, we like to say. But that was also something that was talked about. But the Kurt Hennig and Ric Flair, that was something that we got on TV after Rick had given his notice. But we were working to eventually have that match.